and I'll rant for just a second. So when doing stuff like this and like learning design patterns, you definitely want to focus in on the design pattern and focus in on what you're doing. And that's what C# allows you to do. It kind of takes care of a lot of the low-level stuff for you. But I say that because I don't want to cheerlead C# too much. Learn whatever language you want, and a great reason for learning C++ is, and pardon me for the quick rant. Okay, so if you're working in a .NET shop and you're doing full stack development, you're typically looking at SQL Server for your data, C#, maybe VB, but it's fallen so far out of favor that it's hard to even write here for your business logic. And then typically HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, and JavaScript for your presentation. Right? And so this is your typical web stack. And then if you are, I'll just say or, WPF for your presentation. You're doing desktop. So, and this has been the bubble that .NET developers have lived in for quite some time. If you, and you know, it's somewhat agnostic in that if you're using business logic, you can really decide that you want to do it for a web app anyway. So let's go ahead and quantify this. Primarily for a web app, you can use MongoDB. You can use really anything that you want. Oracle. You can use MySQL or Postgres. You can use whatever data tier you want. You can extract it out. But if you're in a .NET shop, you're 9 times out of 10 going to find you're using SQL Server, and you're probably going to be on a Windows box, right? So this has been the world for Windows developers. So I'll just call this old school. And in the new school, the world is clamoring for this ability to write once and run everywhere. So for my 2 cents, just for my 2 cents, I think that the new school is going to look something like this. Web service is going to be your data, and this is going to make it platform agnostic, right? So we don't really care what you're using. It doesn't matter as long as you expose a nice API. And say web service with API will handle all your persistence. Then I think that your business logic is going to be C++, and your presentation is always going to be CSS or HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And this is where it gets fun, so bear with me. So there's going to be a penalty in writing your business logic in C++. It's going to extend your development time. Right? It's going to be harder to do. There's going to be more bugs. It's going to really ask you to be a better developer for the same amount of payoff as C#. However, where you get all of that back is, how do I ship? Well, and it's just an example, right? It's the one that I like. So, you've got the Electron framework plus Node.js plus a C++, the C++ wrapper. I'm going to say this, desktop equals, and then we say web equals Node.js plus a C++ plus a wrapper. See where I'm going with this, right? And then mobile equals JavaScript plus a C++ wrapper. And this is where you got Cordova. So, rant being done, the idea being that the portability of your business logic is at its height with C++. And for whatever platform you're targeting, you can throw a wrapper around it that's going to help it link into whatever API you're using. For the mobile stuff, that's going to be Cordova. And then for your desktop and your web, it's going to be Node.js, right? And so that means that your HTML and CSS, all your styles, become portable to every environment: desktop, web, mobile, right? And your business logic becomes portable to every environment: desktop, web, and mobile. And then they're all talking to the same web service API. So if you accept this pain point of learning C++, and I call it the pain point because it is harder, then by buying in, you get access to this 100% portable application code that you can send anywhere. And with Windows 10, they're going to be making Node.js a first-class citizen, and your ability to do web apps as universal apps using Node.js as a backend are going to be much easier. So Windows 10 Universal, right? You also get this without having to change. Only 10% of your code has to change, and that 10% is going to be that wrapper that you write per platform. And the Windows 10 Universal stack is going to get you access to desktop, phone, and also Xbox, and then also HoloLens, right? So by doing this new school stack and using tools like Edge.js, which allows you to call C# DLLs from within Node.js, by using the new frameworks that are coming up like Angular 2 or React to do your presentations here in a very modular and efficient way. This stack buys you access to all of these things with the same code and the exact same look and feel to your application. And the proof of that is that the Electron framework, which allows Node.js to run on the desktop, is what powers the Atom.io editor, and it's also what powers the new Visual Studio Code IDE that Microsoft just shipped. So, whatever you're currently doing, I doubt, in my own very, very humble opinion, that's going to get you the same coverage for the same level of effort as this stack. And certainly this stack is going to get you more coverage than this stack. So that's it. And then you're still free to use C# and the service API. You can use that there, right? And if that's where a lot of your time is spent, and then you can get the benefits. You can do it in Java if you'd like. It doesn't really matter. And when you start extrapolating out all that business logic into your web service, I think you'll find that the business logic you have to ship via C++ is actually very small. And a great example of that is anything that requires a sensory awareness. So you've got a phone, and you've got an app that reads the GPS, and you've got a C++ or just a business logic algorithm that takes in all this phone data, crunches it, compares it against your friends, and produces some sort of answer. If you don't ship that with your application, then you're going to be making a round trip to the web service every time you want to process that logic. So, I could rant on forever about it, but anyway, to answer HMT5's question in the most long-winded way possible, those are my thoughts. Alright, so back in the game. We've got a lot of things to really take care of here, and we can see that, which is why we're talking about doing the chain responsibility pattern this early on. Like, even though we're looking at the singleton pattern, we want to be thinking about this, because Gary has connected to the server, and the server's found Gary and sent back where Gary is, who's in the room with him, and also what's on the ground. So the interface aside, do we want to see Gary in this list? Maybe. If Beth moves, will Gary get an update and a response? Maybe. So there's a lot going on here. To say nothing of how hard it is to write a client and a server that's going to be bug free. So let's just look what happens. So we look around, we get that the player is null. So we definitely want to, let's go ahead and let all this crash and burn. So let's go into our hive mind. And let's see what happened. Oh, hang on. We're probably going to have to do this a little bit differently in order to hit that debug point. Okay. Let's go ahead and run this guy from here with debugging turned on. Let's go ahead and run this guy from its output folder. Oh. I thought the hive mind was getting all crazy with this. So it doesn't even look like it even gets. Let's come back over this way. So we expect it to come through with look around. It feels like it's not quite doing that. It's breaking my heart, debugger. Alright. So it lied to us. It does have symbols. Alright, so that all works, or so it seems. And then when we type look, it never actually even gets over here. So somewhere in our refactoring, we did not remove enough code. So something's happening. Try this. And so then inside of our client, we've got this parse strategy. So that when a command comes in, we say, hey, Gary, let me parse the command. And we say that if it's a player, so we have another singleton in our client being our player, because we only want one of those. And so if that comes through, if a command comes through, we just assume it's going to be a login request. So that's what we process. And we log in, and we type look.